by this point in time, Abbott and Costello have made 5 motion pictures with their names above the title. So not counting One Night in the Tropics, we've got Buck Privates, In the Navy, Hold That Ghost, Keep 'em Flying, and Ride 'em Cowboy. And all of them have been hits. And it seems like each film is making steadily and steadily more money than the one before it. So Universal at this stage is raking it in. The boys are the biggest box office draw of the year. Their movies don't show any signs of slowing down, and it looks like it's happy times for everybody, right? Well, not everybody. There are a couple people who are not real pleased with the unqualified success that Universal is having with the Abbott and Costello franchise. And one of those are the folks over at Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, or MGM. See, MGM had the opportunity to sign the boys in 1940 for a movie called Ziegfeld Girl, which takes place with the Ziegfeld Follies. For those who don't know, Florenz Ziegfeld, kind of the founding father of Broadway, who made a lot of vaudeville stars and singers and composers' careers by featuring them in his shows. I honestly can't recall if Abbott and Costello ever worked for Ziegfeld, though it would not surprise me if they did. Whatever the case, Universal managed to snag them away, and Bud and Lou went and became Universal exclusives. And MGM, having missed out on this gold mine that Universal had discovered, was a bit pissy. What you got to understand, before we go further, you kind of have to understand a bit of how the studio system during the 1930s and 40s, how that worked, because it's very different from how movie studios operate these days. Kind of the best analogy I can think of, because this is kind of how I compare and contrast everything, is movie studios back in the day were run a lot more like pro wrestling companies are now, in that each company has their own stable of stars, people that are contractually obligated to them and them exclusively. Do you want to see AJ Styles? You have to go watch WWE. Okay, you want to see Kenny Omega? You have to go watch AEW. You want to watch Eric Young? You need to go watch Impact. And that's how it worked. Now, each movie studio back then had their roster, and these people were signed exclusively to them. In some cases, like the bigger studios, they trained their actors from like little kids all the way up to adulthood. You start in the kid pictures, and then you work in the B pictures, and then we call you up, to the big league. So they had it all in-house, kind of like Disney does. These days, like Disney, again, using them as an example, they'll sign Chris Evans or Chris Pine or Chris Hemsworth or anybody named Chris to a certain number of picture deal. Like they'll have to appear in 7 of the Marvel films, and that's the contract. But in between making those films, Chris Evans, Chris Pine, Chris Hemsworth, other Chris's, they're free to go off and make a movie at another studio if they want. Not so much back in the day. Back in the day, you signed with that studio, you were at that studio. You were making money for that studio. Now, that being understood, what we also have to understand is that occasionally studios would rent their actors out to other studios in exchange for some of their actors. We're seeing this right now, again, in the wrestling world. We're seeing, Impact and AEW are trading stars. We'll send you our heavyweight champion, you send us your tag team champions. We get eyes on everybody, we get to be the talk of the town, and we get to benefit from the shared drawing power. So, in a lot of instances, studios back then would loan stars out for a certain number of pictures. What you also need to understand is that, especially at the time, Universal was not a powerhouse studio at the time. It was relatively small, comparatively speaking. MGM, on the other hand, was very powerful. They were one of the big boys in town. I mean, you heard the term MGM musicals. I mean, they were the big, lavish, expensive studio. And Universal felt like it was not the best idea to be on the bad side of such a powerful studio. So, long story short, too late, sorry, I've already been ranting for almost 6 minutes. Universal decided to loan Abbott and Costello out to MGM for 1 or 2 pictures a year. And this benefited everybody. MGM got to taste some of that Abbott and Costello success. Universal got on the good side of MGM and were able to then have leverage to borrow some of their stars if they needed them. And Bud and Lou got paid. Their salary for the MGM pictures were almost double what they were getting over at Universal. From what with a little bit of research I was able to do and some of the sources I found, the only downside to any of this, from what some people say, is that when Abbott and Costello would return from MGM, they were a little bit dissatisfied with what was going on at Universal, because they just had the star treatment. You know, they'd been to the promised land, and now you kind of have to go back to, you know, it's like going on vacation and then you have to come back home, kind of thing. So, but that minor problem notwithstanding, it was a deal that benefited everybody. And so that's how Abbott and Costello went and did, I believe, if I remember correctly, they did 4 pictures under the MGM banner. It might have been 5, but we'll see as I go along. And for the most part, I feel like the MGM films are some of their best work, and I think there are a couple of reasons why that is. Again, first of all, MGM just had more money, and it shows in the production of these films. The sets are just a lot bigger. The musical numbers are a lot more extravagant. I don't know quite how to describe it, but there's something in the way the film is shot. It just seems like it's lit a little differently. It's not as dark and grainy as some of the Universal ones. It just feels bigger. You know, it just feels more expensive. I don't know why that is. Well, obviously I know why that is. They're getting paid more. The other thing about the MGM pictures is I think one of the reasons why the quality is so high on these ones is because they had more time. You know, if you're only getting this huge star for 1 picture a year, you're not going to waste it on, you know, some cookie cutter plot and thrown together script. You're going to take your time. You're going to massage it a little. You're going to make sure that it fits and that you're getting the most bang for your buck. That's just good business. So it definitely feels to me like the MGM, Abbott, and Costello films just have a little bit more time put into them in terms of the script and the production. It doesn't feel as rushed. So I think that goes a long way to explaining why I'm going to say at least 3 of the MGM pictures are some of the best quality pictures they did. One of them I'm kind of hazy on. We'll see what happens when I finally get to Lost in a Harem after such a long time. So at any rate, Rio Rita is our first Abbott and Costello in MGM picture. All right, history lesson over. Let's talk about the movie. So what is the movie about? What's the story? Okay, buckle up. This is going to take a few seconds to explain. So in El Paso, Texas, there is a very huge and extravagant hotel, and it's owned by a very young woman, early 20s, named Rita. This is the Rio Rita of the title, played by Kathryn Grayson, who would be quite a important figure in a lot of MGM films. Looking at her IMDb, she did a lot of their musicals. A lot of film versions of things like Showboat, As Thousands Cheer, Kiss Me Kate. So she was quite a player in the MGM musical scene. And this is one of her early roles. So anyway, Little Rita runs this hotel. This hotel now has a radio station attached to it. And as part of this huge kind of celebratory broadcast, they've arranged for a hometown celebrity, a guy by the name of Ricardo Montoya, who's played by John Carroll. He was born there. He went away, became a star. He's going to come back and do a radio broadcast. And Rita is excited to meet him after so long. They were childhood sweethearts, and of course they're going to be our guy-girl couple for this. All right, so everybody following on so far? Good. Here comes the curveball. It turns out that the hotel is being managed by Nazi spies. And they have a devious plot to use the radio broadcast, use the advertisements in the radio broadcast to transmit coded messages to foreign agents in hiding. Keep that plot point in mind, because that's going to come back when we talk about whodunit here in a little while. All right, so boy-girl story, childhood sweethearts reuniting, Nazi spies, lot of things going on. Where do Abbott and Costello come into this? Well, Bud and Lou play two fellas who are stranded, and they, believing that they're hitching a ride to New York, they hide in the back of Ricardo's car. They hide in his trunk and end up in Texas at the hotel. They befriend Rita. She gives them a job as hotel detectives. In an attempt to kind of repay her and to help her and Ricardo get together, they hatch this plan for Lou to seduce this kind of femme fatale played by Patricia Dane, who is making the moves on Ricardo. In the midst of Lou trying to seduce this woman, they stumble backwards into the Nazi plot, and, hilarity ensues. So already there's a lot going on here. Just describing some of these plots it's like you feel like you need a flow chart. But here's the thing, and again, this I think is a credit to the time that the MGM studio was able to take with the Abbott and Costello films. It doesn't feel like it's rushed or convoluted or confusing as you're watching the actual movie. The plot points fit together fairly well. We avoid some of the pitfalls from other Abbott and Costello movies. So we still have the guy-girl dynamic. We still have Kathryn Grayson and John Carroll as Ricardo and Rita. And, their little love story is kind of the catalyst for everything that goes on. But, again, I think this is where this movie and other ones benefit, is that, yes, they have the boy-girl love story, but it is very much the side story. It's the Elizabeth and Will Pirates of the Caribbean thing. It's there to just checkpoint plots and push Abbott and Costello to the forefront. They're smart that they actually, unlike Keep 'em Flying or Ride 'em Cowboy, they tie the boy-girl love story back to the plot with Abbott and Costello. Bud and Lou find out about the Nazi plot, and they get involved with that because they're trying to help Rita. They're really trying to repay her for her kindness. And so that becomes the inciting incident for them kind of getting involved with all of this, all the spy shenanigans. Other than that, I gotta say, I like Rita and Ricardo. Again, Katherine Grayson is a wonderful actress, and so is John Carroll. John Carroll, another longtime day player over at MGM. Just some of his past credits: he was in a Marx Brothers movie, Go West, and he was also in the second ever Maisie film, Congo Maisie. So go check out my Forgotten Gems review on the Maisie films to kind of hear a little bit more about that little problematic film. But a very steady hand. They're good characters and they're good actors. They're just kind of dull, and it's easy to forget that they are there and that they have anything whatsoever to do with the plot. You know, I kind of wish Rita had a little bit more to do in a film named Rio Rita. You know, like they could have completely done away with Ricardo and had Rita have more screen time, more interaction with the boys, and a little bit more of a presence. As it is, she's a very passive presence. Clearly, they're both there because of their singing talent, and I'm sorry to say, first of all, both of them are very talented singers. Not saying they are not talented singers. They're very, very good singers. The problem is we're back to kind of the same problem we had with One Night in the Tropics, wherein we ditched the boogie-woogie, high energy, and it's very operatic. Again, no disrespect to opera singers. I know several personally. I know how hard it is to sing like that and the skill it takes. But, man, it slows the pace down. And opera sounds very weird when you're singing a pop love song and that we're going to, and as such, it makes their musical numbers just feel like they are going on forever. Oh. But not bad characters, and they serve the plot well enough. So let's talk about Abbott and Costello's contribution. So again, I think because they were able to take a little bit more time and craft a story that was a little bit more functional, Bud and Lou feel like they have a lot more to do, not just in terms of their screen time, but they're able to do some fresh, newer stuff. This is not a very routine-heavy film. They don't do a lot of their classic bits in this one. There are only two bits that I count in this one. There's You're Not Here. This is where Bud bets Lou that Lou is not there. You know, you're not in Pennsylvania, you're not in Cincinnati, you're not in Cleveland. Well, if you're not in Pennsylvania, Cincinnati, or Cleveland, you must be someplace else. If you're someplace else, you can't be here. So, and then Lou tricks him by stealing the money back, and he says, well, what are you doing? He says, well, I'm not in Cincinnati, I'm not in Cleveland, I'm not in Pittsburgh, so I'm not in those places. I must be someplace else. If I'm someplace else, I can't be here. If I'm not here, how did I take your money? Again, I'm not doing it anywhere near justice. So they do that bit. They also do this is one of their lesser knowns. They do the kissing booth bit where they're gambling with a guy. A lot of their bits center around gambling, if you've noticed. And there's 10 beautiful women behind them. Each one of them has a number on their shirt, and the guy says, I'll go up and kiss one of them, and you have to guess the number of the one I kissed. And of course, shenanigans. I'm not going to explain the whole thing. So those are the only two bits that are kind of classic Abbott and Costello that are done in this one, and the rest is just, let's put these guys in a situation, a lot of chase situations, being chased by the big burly bouncer who's actually a Nazi agent, a lot of the seduction humor. As I mentioned earlier, they found out it was funny, starting with Hold That Ghost, to kind of give Lou a real love interest. And in this one, we get kind of the femme fatale, watching him and Patricia Dane work together, and him going after this, the smoldering hot, dark-haired, cunning female who's hiding something, and he's very, childlike and on the surface. It's a really fun dynamic, and it always gives Lou something more to play off of. But I think one of the things that really makes this film a lot of fun is that who their victims are in this one. Who are the victims of Abbott and Costello being at this resort. For a lot of their films, up until this point, the victims have been primarily just authority figures. Drill sergeants, bosses, things of that nature. And for the first time, Bud and Lou's adversaries, their antagonists, are Nazis. Right out. Now, they don't know they're Nazis for a huge chunk of the film, but the audience does. So as you're watching Abbott and Costello run around and trick these guys and, punch them or, lure them into funny little traps or constantly outsmart them, you're watching Bud and Lou outsmart Nazis. And I think, of course, 1942, this film was released March 11th, 1942. That's going to go over real big. Something interesting to note, and I'll talk about this more as we go, but you cannot understate how important Abbott and Costello were to the war effort. You cannot understate that. We're going to talk a lot about that here coming up when we talk about whodunit. But just up to this point, their 3 service pictures had not only improved recruitment, people signed up after watching those movies, but they painted the armed forces in such a good light that it gave people a lot of morale. Okay? And Abbott and Costello are going to become essential to the morale of people on the home front. They are going to become such a source of comfort. And again, you cannot understate that. But what I find really interesting is, for all of that, they never did a picture, at least not that I can recall, and we'll see what happens as we go through, where they were out and out fighting the war. In this one, they fight Nazi spies, and they'll fight a foreign agent in another film. But they never do a war picture. They never do one where they are, in the actual war, which as again we're going to talk about later down the line. I find in one instance it feels like we're missing an important film of the trilogy. But I think that is due because, again, the fact that they were so imperative to the morale back home. Seeing Bud and Lou take down Nazis with just kind of their quick wits, or in some cases dumb luck, or something like that, was a tremendous morale booster to moviegoers in 1942. Okay? These weren't Captain America or Batman or Spy Smasher or any of the guys who were like stars of the 1940s serials that I love so much. These were 2 bumbling, fat, comical, everymen. And not just everymen, every child. And to give the audience this view that these guys can defeat the Nazis gives the audience, whether subconsciously or consciously, gives them the message, you can defeat the Nazis. We can defeat the Nazis. If Bud and Lou can do it, we can do it. And again, you can't overstate how important they were. And I think this film, that's one of the unique flavors of it. This is one of the few times they actually are fighting a foreign power. Compared this to, like the Marx Brothers with Duck Soup, yeah, they weren't fighting Nazis, but they did a whole war narrative. The Three Stooges did several shorts where it was very deliberate. They did shorts where Moe was pretending to be Hitler, for crying out loud. So that was right on the nose. Bud and Lou were much more of an audience surrogate, much more of a point of view character than I think some of their comedic counterparts. And I think that's why this film works so well, or one of the reasons this film works so well. This film just feels fresh. After you watch the Universal ones, and then you watch one of the MGM ones, and it just feels like there's a refreshing feel to it. Again, they don't feel as rushed And this is nothing against the Universal films. Their best work is done at Universal. But it's just kind of what happens when you allow people to kind of rest and take their time and really produce a good product. And I think this one is an excellent kind of breath of fresh air in between kind of the cookie cutter process that was going on over at Universal. And again, I want to state again, Universal films are great. Love them. Nothing against them. Just saying. There's something to be said for taking your time and breathing. So Rio Rita did exactly what it was supposed to do. It brought a huge box office to MGM. They were very satisfied, and from then on, Bud and Lou would go on and do about a picture a year for them, maybe 2 pictures a year, taking a break from their filming over at Universal. So Rio Rita is a fun film. It's the plot's a little disjointed, but the comedy is fresh. The boys feel like they're getting a second wind, and they're ready to kind of push forward for the next stage. So they finish this film and they head back over to Universal, and we're going to go from a hotel in El Paso to an island in the South Seas. So when we return next time, we will talk about Pardon My Sarong. So thank you very much for watching, and as always, drive safe, and I will see you at the movies.